Hello. I've been getting a lot of questions about shading, so I just wanted to review with you one more time about just light and shadow, thinking about light source, and then of course proper shading technique. So if you look at my still life, you look at my photo, one of the things that you probably will notice is that the light appears to be coming from a couple of different directions. If you look at the top here, the light kind of seems to be shining in and hitting the top edge of things. You'll also notice that the cast shadow is being projected onto the tabletop onto the right. So that lets me know that the light is coming from the upper left. And so you'll notice that a lot of things on that upper left side will be really light, and then things that are getting hidden behind it are going to get dark. So remember that your best thing to do first is just to determine which pencil will do the best work for you. The skull is pretty light, so I grabbed out an HB pencil. You know that I don't really like to shade very much with H pencils at all. I prefer 4Bs or higher. But for the purpose of this demo, I'm going to go ahead and use it just to show that with short, close, overlapping marks that you can get it to look very, very smooth. So because I'm a righty, I'm going to start on the upper left of my drawing. That way I'm not putting my hand across something that I've already shaded. When I look at this eye socket area, I'm going to be trying to shade with the contours. So I'm going to be trying to shade with the direction that the skull is kind of bending in space. And so I'm going to use how I'm going to hold it, is I'm going to hold it kind of loose, a little bit far back so I can get a really nice value. And what I want to do is use light marks, and notice that they are kind of bending with the contour. So over on the edge it's a little bit darker, then it gets a little bit lighter, so I'm going to use less marks, and then I'm going to kind of go over it really short and close so that I can't see any lines in between. I'm going to bring this down a little bit farther. So instead of using really long marks, I tend to use short marks, and then to kind of smooth or to blend those in, I'm going to go ahead and cross shade. So the opposite direction would be going across this way almost horizontally. I'm also going to be bending it with the contours, and that will help hopefully smooth this out. So as long as I use the right pencil, more than likely this isn't going to take me very long. If I need to get darker values, maybe on the interior of the eye socket, maybe I'm going to use a darker pencil from the get-go. And so for this one, you'll see that same sort of pressure is quite darker. Some people don't like to switch pencils because they don't like how there's a color change. Sometimes I'll just kind of go back in and add a little bit of the other color of pencil into my darker areas. It's not really a color, but different amounts of softness to it to kind of blend those together. And once again, I'm trying to shade with the cavity. So I'm looking at which direction the shadow is going. This cast shadow from this bone on the part here. That's where we're getting that little dark piece right there. I'm trying to put it in so that it represents the darkness that I see from my still life. So you can look at your monitor, or you can look at your still life, or you can look at your photo. And remember that photos tend to flatten out your value. So you're going to get a better range by using better reference. So the actual thing, if you have that available, if not, we took pictures with the DSLR and we put them on our Chromebooks, and so that will work really well for you too. Notice inside this eye socket, nothing is white. It's It's like a light soft gray, so I'm going to have to really go in there. Hold the pencil back far so I can get those really nice light values. Right. If I want to start bringing this over, I really want to still make sure that I'm shading the direction here, so it looks curved. If you go too dark, feel free to use your kneaded eraser, kind of pick up the value. I'm not really loving that HB pencil, so I'll probably go in there and get rid of it and use really light pressure once again with that 4B. And I try not to use the side of the pencil, but when you're holding it back far, it's pretty easy to go ahead and start doing that where it starts to look like a rubbing. So one of the things that you really want to keep in mind is sometimes you really want to use a nice sharp pencil to allow those values to look as smooth as possible, to create that illusion of reality. So bending this, the contour, using nice short close overlapping marks. I can cross shade, go the opposite direction, still nice and short, because if I start using large marks, right, it's going to look hairy and it's going to look scratchy, right? And still kind of developing these values. Remember, I can use more of the tip of the pencil to really get and fill in that tooth. Overlap and fill those values in. So the key is to really just try to put it in the best you can in the areas in which you see it, to shade with the contour. So that doesn't mean you don't want to shade with a straight line, right? Instead, you want to make sure that you're bending with the contours. So you're like looking at which direction is it bending in space, right? This is the shadow area. This part is that upper part. Notice how light it is. If it's pure white, it is okay to leave it in white. But then where you see it like a subtle gray, you want to make sure that you put that in too. The key with value is that contrast, right? The more differences you can show, the more 3D it's going to look. Right, so like inside here, look quickly at this area here. I want that to be nice and dark to pop that bone piece out. So I'm gonna keep tweaking and tweaking and tweaking until I get something that looks pretty three-dimensional, right? Sometimes it's okay to leave texture. If you're on something like the driftwood that actually has linear elements to it, it's okay. There's some places where you might have things look a little bit more streaky and less smooth. And that's okay as long as it's texture. You just want to do the best you can to make your objects look three-dimensional.